just weren't having
because something died. Something died in the garage, and so our office is actually
I'm trying to go live. I'm so sorry. I'm trying.
If it's not done before, then you should not be able to do it.
I
exit
live.
I go out there. Look, oh my gosh, it's not even facing the right way.
Well, there's
our office is in the garage, and so I go out there to go get the computer set up, and I cannot breathe. It is
like, you know, that toxic.
Like, it smells so bad.
It's that like toxic.
So you know what that means. This guy's got to go into the crawl space and see what died.
So I'm gonna have a bit
because oh man, and it's like 80 degrees here.
You know,
it is disgusting smelling.
Oh, when dead things die in the summertime,
it is like
worst. It's the worst.
Oh my god, it is so terrible.
But it throws you off because we work from home, so sometimes it's like, and for me, I'm like squirrel. So for me, I have to like, okay, let me finish these 3 tasks, and then I will get my dirty shoes on, go in the crawl space, pick up a bunch of dead rodents that are probably half, and you know it smells because they're probably rotting. And then where do you find it sometimes? Like, you can't always find it. That's the worst part.
Ugh.
You know?
I think it's like underneath.
Where would this go this go in our vows? So would this go like not sickness and health? Is this for better or for worse? Is that kind of that category? Is this the worst? And who's in charge of worse?
This would be for better or worse of the home.
For better or worse of the home. And this is actually a good segue. It's a good kickoff. So we're on Thursday, we're going to be talking about creating vows and commitments and promises that last, that are not simply just beautiful poetry. Love a good poem. I really do.
I hate poetry.
Oh, I like a good poetry.
Ugh.
What?
Barf.
You just insulted
the only poetry,
a bunch of poets out there.
The only poetry that I ever really enjoy, and I don't even know if it's poetry, but I feel like it's a form of poetry, are like really good monologues.
Ooh, like the written word.
Like
I like it when they have like the drum in the background.
Like, remember that monologue on Miss Maisel?
A good monologue.
Apparently, guys, I think she won an Emmy for that. It was
which one?
What's her name? Alex.
Oh my god.
Alex something. The one who plays Susie Myers. She did an amazing monologue when her friend died, but it wasn't even really her friend. Like, nobody knew this guy. Nobody showed up, but she showed up, and so she went to go do this monologue. But she actually did it in at the other. Anyway, it's an amazing monologue. It is so long, and it is so good. We were watching it like. And that to me is more like poetry. That would be the poetry that I like, but I don't actually like poetry.
But sidetrack. But I'm going to get back to what I was going to say.
Sorry.
Okay. You can. Yeah, that's fine. I derail. I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but our cat and our dog
we're inside today. We're supposed to be in the garage. Something died in there. We can't do it in there.
We're okay. We need to focus. It's funny when you say like, okay, so like these are the situations. Well, and typically I think there's like roles that we fall into, but not. I think everyone has like their like stories or roles that they know really well in their relationship. But speaking of, but you get stuck actually sometimes in the assumptions of those roles too. And but they're not like, when I think I was kind of joking. What categories does this fall under? Like sickness and health. New things will come up as you are married longer and longer, and it's like we forget that, like, oh, when we said for better and for worse, what is better? What is better and what is for?
Yeah, do you mean like better in your finances and worse in your finances? Do you mean better in your?
He just parkoured off the wall.
Yeah, he did. Do you mean better in your surroundings and worse in your surroundings? You know, because there's all of these outside stressors that really kind of encompass what better could be or what worse could be. And what is better? What is worse? Like there's times in our marriage where you're like, everything was great. And it's like, that was a terrible time.
I
Right?
candidly,
It's like,
y'all, if you want more details, I'm sure we'll. I mean, this is kind of replacing temporarily. This is like a temporary warm up to our more formal podcast, which I'm sure we can start just figuring out how to do this for that more officially. But I will say, if you want to know more details, you can go to season 1 where we explain a lot more of this. However, it is even to this day, like I believe you. I know it to be true based off of the confidence and trust that I have in your word, and as I've reflected a lot. But I gotta tell you, you know how like when you can have to rely on other points of view because you were kind of like unaware. So you kind of have to okay, and you have to kind of just trust that what they're all saying repetitively is probably more so what really happened versus your take on it. That's how I view sometimes like many times in our marriage because you're a bit better at like I mean like if like I really pissed you off, you would just like screw this guy and you like you're better on your own anyway. You do well on your own.
mhm,
Like you don't like you're not like I don't like to be alone for that long.
mhm,
But you don't mind it. So it was
mhm.
easier for you to pull back, and I'm just completely unaware. But it's funny because when you think back on some of the hardest times of our lives, I believe that, and it was I had frustrations, but I don't have the same association. So when you describe it, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll have to take your word for it because I was having a great time. You know what I mean? Like, because like, yeah, everyone was over, we were partying, or we were listening to music, we're taking shots, we're having a good
It was
time.
very much like
Like,
your
yeah,
world
but
and what
then
you needed.
and then when I would come up to you, you would just like do this, and I was like, I don't even remember saying that to you. So I was like kind of maybe alienating you through either just passive aggressive critique or comments or judgments, and then or I pick a fight one night and I don't literally remember the next day because I was drunk. I don't have the same association of like what the bad times were. So I'm like, we had great times. And you're like, what are you talking about? So I thought that I think it's kind of funny. It's not funny now.
Funny to you.
Funny now. It's reflective now.
It's funny
But
to you.
but I take your word. I take your word for it. And there's a like level of trust that I have to be responsible. I can't remember where I was going with that, but I think
We
that
were
was
talking about for better or worse.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh
and
yeah.
how
So
that
that
can mean so
to
many
me
different
that was like
things.
I was talking to Kayla yesterday. I was like, it's important to remember like what some people's conditions or deal breakers are, or what someone's better or worse. It's different. I'm
Right.
like, oh, if they did that, then I'm out of there. I'm like, well,
And
if they did that, I'm not out of
and better or worse is so big and
there. Broad.
broad and mischievousness
Well,
and like it's so there's just so many ways out. You're like, oh, but you said there's sickness and health or something. And it's like, okay,
I didn't know extreme mental illness. That's a different story. Like,
yeah, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. But also, even in saying that, as a partner, if you're really truly making a promise and a commitment that's co-owned, you're also responsible in the showing up of sickness and health.
mm,
So if you're getting sick all the time, I have a responsibility to, like when you're in pain and going through all your crap you go through, I'm also responsible for helping and being like, okay, like here are your options. Here's what we can do. I want to help you through this. Not being just like, screw you, you're on your own.
that's where I think wisdom and discernment is. There's a lot of possibility for wisdom and discernment in that because it can get very slippery and mischievous based off of individual ones. Because I'll give you an example, like if I'm sick or if I'm struggling, I have depression or I have a physical body injury, I broke my arm, I'm down and out, back injury. That's like okay, that's a part of sickness and health that is supporting that. But then it's like okay, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, like no, but where it can get mischievous is if you're like trying to lift me up into health and I'm like attached to my sickness, like that's worth discussing.
Right,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is though is It's a co-owned responsibility.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. That would
Yes.
be you not really functioning in an integrity of trying to be well,
Yes.
right?
Well,
So
yes.
that would be you not playing that game or fulfilling on that part anymore. If you decided to like, oh no, screw it, this is just the way I am. It's like, oh no, we actually made a commitment around this, so we're both playing this game.
Okay. Yeah,
That's different.
another perfect segue is
Because,
yeah.
well, hang on, because there are, and like we know some relationships where it's really hard because one person really looks out after themselves being well and the other actually doesn't care. And in the vows it said through sickness and in health. It's so big and it's so undetailed that there's a lot of mystery that happens. And guess where a lot of the arguments are? Guess where a lot of upsets are? Guess where a lot of the frustrations are? It's in this very fluffy, poetic through sickness and in health. And there were two very different viewpoints of what that actually meant.
Mhm.
And so then you really do feel like you're trying to fulfill on a commitment by yourself. You can't really feel in a
Well, okay. And we'll just keep giving the examples. A part of being in sickness can include mental sickness and
Mhm,
mental health.
mhm.
So then that even that determines people say, well, no, of course I'm gonna like love you and cherish you if you were having like a mental. Okay, but what if that mental illness is expressed through verbal abuse
Mhm,
and or physical abuse?
mhm.
You know, like, so like, well, of course, I'm not going to tolerate that. Not that you should tolerate, not that you should, and we're not condoning that at all. But it's worthwhile to notice there are conditions that, when present,
You may
have
have,
you exit,
right, that you may have or that may come up
and
or
they're not clear.
and they're not.
So that's the thing where,
Like, no joke, Zach and I have gotten into such nitty-gritty details that we'll be like, okay, so if you lose your memory, you're totally gone, you have a traumatic brain injury,
1 year.
like, how long?
For
How
me, it
long?
was 2.
It was two.
Mine
For
was
you,
like
it was
mine was
years.
like 2 or 3. And I have
It was like,
the,
yeah, it was like, no,
and I
if
may
I'm
go
like
longer.
that for a year and like that's the commitment,
You release.
like I release you
No,
from having to like function as if you're functioning with the same person. Like I release you from that. But it's like
and
some
I didn't
people
accept that. Hold on, I didn't accept that. Yours, what I said, no, I'm committing to the fact that it might be at least 2 or 3 years. But you said, like, that if I'm out and I get minimum 1 year, you know, I was like, I would prefer 2 or 3. You know, I think you even said, I'll give you 1. I was like, 'cause
I'm like I can last a while. But I
it sounds so
it
cold-blooded,
sounds
but
so
it's
cool.
actually
But
powerful.
it's actually yeah, it's actually really powerful because it and he's like, "Oh, I don't know, I think I could do 2 or 3." And it's not to make light of a situation. It's
Or
actually saying
belittle.
yeah, or belittle anything that's happening. What is it's like creating a living will. It's like why not have conversations
Yeah.
because they also create a possibility because in having those conversations we realize that we don't actually have a lot of conditions. We actually don't have a whole lot of out of this relationship when or if this happens. It's like in those conversations you kind of uncover a lot
Mhm.
and and in out of and it's all out of love and respect. It's like if something happened to me, I I know my own constitution well enough that if something were to happen to me and my memory was to be gone to 2 years and miraculously come back, that I would be grounded in this commitment then that we have that it's okay to and it's not that it wouldn't be hard or wouldn't be sad, but it's like
Mhm.
that is a different it's a different life than what you have originally stepped into. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and quite
Yeah.
frankly, like a different person, like you are your memory. So if something were to happen
Okay, a perfect example of that is like when you the number one checkbox for divorce is irreconcilable. That's a good word. Ir- Irreconcilable, irreconcilable.
now I can't.
Help me out. I'm the one that's like bad with
I know, but you just said it wrong 2 times.
irreconcilable differences, non-reconcilable differences. Like the number one thing,
And recognize
and
now I can't say it because I can't even think of
which
what's actually
proves that you get into a relationship thinking like, well, we're gonna have differences that are gonna have us divorce. You don't thinking that we all have them. So it's almost like it's like a perfect example that a massive population is essentially recognizing the very fact that there are differences in points of view of what sickness and health, for better and for worse. We all say these vows,
Mhm.
but we actually, none of us, including you and I, truly live them at that highest level
Yeah.
of insight.
I'm
And it's not that it's not possible, but and you might exit the relationship with not divorce, by the way,
Mhm.
or breakup.
Yeah,
You might
yeah.
exit by having an affair,
Emotional,
emotional,
physically, yeah,
cheating.
yeah.
You might have, yeah, maybe on a messenger app. You're just having like a mental affair.
Yeah.
You could,
And
or you're just attached.
well, I was gonna say, and exiting doesn't mean with another person. You can also exit emotionally and just
Just
not be in
not
relationship.
available.
Like you're
You
just
can not
like not
available,
available. Yeah. Um,
but you
and
stay in the relationship with kids.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like there's a bunch of ways that you can exit without like physically exiting or like
Okay.
signing a paper. But we know that these ups and downs or differences are coming because there are things called, prenuptial agreements. There are
Well,
things that
that's the ultimate,
that's the ultimate,
ultimate.
like, this is gonna get screwed. And it's like, no, but this is just in case something happens. And it's like, w well,
You're
so
recognizing it
you're
as
recognizing that there is, in fact, an exit point of some kind, and you're choosing to not communicate the fear or whatever it is that that condition or exit point is. It's like, those are kind of things that are important to talk about.
that
Um,
would be like going into, imagine starting like the Super Bowl. And you're like, race right the championship. What an honor to like play this game. But before we do, if you step out of bounds, we're blowing the whistle and we're canceling the game. Like, where's out of bounds? I don't know yet. You might have, but where are the boundaries?
there's no
We
lines on the
we don't
field.
know
We're
yet.
just
Hey,
gonna
we're
go
not going to talk about
we're
that
just
yet
gonna
because we
go
don't
by
know.
feeling.
We just
We're gonna feel where the
let's
lines are.
not hey, let's just get along. Let's
We're
just
just gonna we're just gonna hope that everybody stays in the line. But there's no lines on the field.
we don't know what they are, but you should
But
know
like
if you
you kind of understand right now where they are
hold
though,
on. The fact
right?
that we Sarah, is you should know, man.
Yeah, well, see, and then you make them sign a paper.
You know what?
Literally
Let's just sign.
proving I don't know where the out of bounds are and I may F up. Oh, I will not take your money. What? Like that is the
And,
weirdest
and
thing.
when it happens, you have no possibility to create anything new or go on anything. I'm just gonna blow the whistle and we're out of the game. Like it's
And people will argue and say, "Well, no, those are for the protection of my family or they're for the protection of my kids, my property or whatever." It's like, oh, so
okay.
that's where some of the fears are there is
So
like
share that.
it's like that. Like, do you see? Like you could say, well, those are important because they're like, but notice that whenever you do that, or we haven't gotten married because of X, Y, and Z, that those there are fears and conditions behind all of those things. And when shared and when put out into the open, there's actually more freedom and more room to play. And so we're always inviting people to like that conversation. And a lot of those things are kind of uncovered in the 4-day workshop that we lead because we unveil some opportunity that seems unavailable right now. Because right now, when you think of this conversation, you probably are thinking of, I could never say that. That would start an argument. I could never go there. We don't touch that conversation, it ends up in upset, or we start yelling or whatever. We don't actually touch those conversations. And what we allow people to do is actually have these conversations after kind of getting rid of some stuff, like just kind of noticing things. And we've had plenty of people. I mean, gosh, after the first day of this last round, people were saying, "Oh my goodness, we were able to talk about things that normally end up in a huge argument or huge like."
And we're
Right?
laughing about it
Yeah, and
now.
then they were laughing about it, and then another couple were able to have a Sunday afternoon doing things that they normally don't do, having conversations they normally wouldn't have had because there were things showing up differently. And so how cool to actually have the communication that is productive, landed, heard, and that's all it is. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes there's nothing else to do with it. So, yeah, it is funny how we do that.
It's it's well, I think it sounds bad. It sounds bad to create a condition. It sounds like what it might feel like, I imagine, is you don't really love, or it's like kind of like that. Yeah, we've all heard those statements. Well, I shouldn't have to
You
because
should
they
love
should
every
know,
part of me.
or
Like, yeah.
like okay, our example, and hey, we might lose a few people with this, but like for us, like and it's home killers too. It's like okay, well, if you got so unhealthy and you got morbidly unhealthy and obese, then that would be a deal breaker for me. And then, but it's not about like, oh, that's so shallow. Like, no, I want my wife to be available for my kids.
Mhm,
I don't want her to have a heart attack. Like,
mhm,
I don't want her to die early, like my friends have dealt with.
mhm.
Like, I want her to be like a core value in our relationship started off with adventure.
Yeah, and
So
being
like,
active
I don't
and,
want
like, you don't
to.
wanna have to change that.
I'm not saying, and it has nothing to do with that's something that we want. But what happened is because I shared it. Oh, well, I actually feel the same about you. Hey, do you want to play a game called Health together?
Yeah, because it opens up a possibility because it's not, "Oh, this is a shallow thing to say." It's like, "Well, no, we really value activity, we value adventure, we value feeling good, we value feeling good." Like, right now, like, neither of us feel our best right now, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for both of us because we enjoy that, but it's something that we also can take on together versus versus n not being available to someone who may need you, right? And so it allows for space of, like,
Mm,
a little bit different kind of back and forth because it's like, "Well, how do I support you in this?" Because, being healthy and functioning well is important to us.
mhm.
And and for the same similar reasons, it's like you may have, ideas or things that you want to uphold later on. And it's like later on in your marriage, right? Or later on in your relationship. And it's like, well, what do we need to set in place for those things to actually happen? And so it can be a big conversation.
Yeah,
Whereas before, a conversation like that, if it was if we were to have a conversation like that in an environment that was not the workshop or not something like that, how offended would I be? Like, come on,
yeah,
get real. If he was to say something like that to me in an environment that was not supportive and had not unveiled certain things so that it didn't, like, get either of us upset, like, you would be offended. Like,
yeah.
most people would be offended by what you said or what I said to you, but we weren't offended. It was a place of like, "Oh,
Okay, yeah.
actually seeing something. I'm actually seeing a fear here. I'm actually seeing a worry here.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
actually seeing." And the truth is when you share those conditions or fears, some of them just, like, disappear. Like, they actually disappear because you might share something, and the response is, "Thank you for telling me," and then later, it's like, "No, that's never gonna happen. I'm never gonna, like, stab you in the back." Like, that's not I'm not gonna do
cats, man. Gosh, why do we even have them? We knew we shouldn't have
There's, like, my whole Stanley Cup, like, the whole Stanley Cup.
a big cup. Big cup.
Okay.
Well,
So, what
if you're struggling with that, let's say we
what is available sometimes when you share the fears or when you share the conditions is that they kind of disappear because later you may actually have your partner reassure you or there's a conversation, a really fun conversation of playing of being like, "Oh my goodness, I feel that same way. So let's agree that those things aren't going to happen." And it can be about anything. I can't really, I'm having a hard time thinking of one where it's like, where that both of us shared and we're like, "Oh yeah, that will never happen." Um, and so it's a fun place to play because you may have more similar of a story than you actually think when you share those conditions and fears and stuff. Gosh, dang it, Judy.
Alexa, please clip that last snippet. Oh, shit, that's the highlight right there.
Judy. He's licking it up off the floor now.
Your cat's thirsty. Okay, well, that's That's a good insight. Signed.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
No, I mean, well, maybe, but
If you do want to explore, like,
mhm.
if you feel like, oh yeah, our vows are a little broad, they are a little loose, they are a little this or that, like, come to the free webinar on Thursday because that's kind of what we're going to be exploring a little bit more. And it's a fun conversation because it may open up something maybe open and available to you in doing that.
This isn't like to fix or improve anything. It's to be able to play, and know where the out of bounds are. So if you listen to this, no, we're like it's always I always feel like I drop the ball somewhere when I get a response like, I mean, I think we're good. I think we're all set because that's not the intention of our life's work.
No.
It's to help people go beyond and come from a place of creativity
And
and have that,
including that.
and including
I think
we're
people
fine.
feel like, oh my gosh, I have to change our
No,
relationship. It's like,
it's
no, it
there,
actually includes whatever the
there,
goodness is
there's
that's
this
there.
there's a sense of adventure and play that can be brought forth inside of that. So this isn't for people that are like hurting and hungry for more. No, sorry. While people that are hurting and hungry for more really benefit from this, equally, you're gonna love having the chance to be able to just generate and play with your partner if you are in a space.
Mhm.
In fact, it might be even a great starting point because you're entering the field ready to play the same game. And then there's another category of people that just want to like be on this in the same book, forget the same page, but just in the same book. So that's what I would have to say about that.
Mhm.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Mhm.
We're gonna go have a great time.
I know. I gotta like get my space because my head's hurting a little bit. So
All right. Speaking
we
of
gotta
health.
we gotta get that head right.
All right. Much love, everybody. Happy
All
Friday.
right. Have a good one.